So what we're talking about is, for me, one of the more exciting reinvention stories I get to watch, and it's still unfolding, which most reinvention stories have a nature about them that they unfold in chapters versus
Uh-huh.
um, make a leap over a bridge and say, I'm here and end of story. So, and it hasn't that been the case for you?
Yeah, it's I've had a convoluted path. Like there was no simple way to really do what I did. I definitely, when I finally decided that this is what I wanted to do, I kind of was like, okay, I have to. I kind of halfway did it in the beginning, but it was like, no, I can't halfway do it. I have to make a leap. I have to I have to finally just decide that I'm going to be a filmmaker and go do it. Like,
Go do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Jump in and
yeah,
be the filmmaker. So let's go back because
hmm,
I want to trace your steps.
yeah,
If we go back to when I first met you, this
uh-huh,
was before the USPS.
yep.
What, what were you doing at that point when I first met you?
When you and I first met, what was I doing? I was probably working before I started working at the Postal Service. I was working retail for Adidas outlet.
Okay, that's right. All right.
And that's I mean, there's many things before that that I did. I worked, just to keep it simple, before I did retail, I worked in human services. Like, not, I wasn't a social worker per se.
Yeah.
I did a lot of what I would call behavior therapy, and I worked with kids with developmental disabilities and kids with behavior problems. And there was an event that occurred with one of my clients when I was working for a place here in Salt Lake that was a contained elementary school unit for kids with behavior problems. And one of my favorite clients ended up having basically a mental breakdown.
Mm.
And I kind of sat there and had to watch him literally melt down to the point that we had to call uni and bring in basically an ambulance and take him away.
Wow.
And yeah, really, really intense. Um, and it was just in that moment of like, oh man, like I have no power over what's happening to him. And
As you're watching it unfold, you feel
yeah,
powerless.
yeah. And I just kind of just, I think I had hit my peak of just burnout. Just, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was on a softball team at the time, and one of my teammates ran the Adidas retail outlet. And I just was like, I need something else to do. I can't mentally do this anymore. And she was like, well, I'm looking for somebody, and maybe this is just a transition job for you for now, but at least it gets you out of that situation. And so I went and I sold shoes and managed the retail outlet for a couple of years. And I wasn't really happy there necessarily. I mean, I spent my paycheck. That was the problem.
But yeah, you could spend your paycheck because you're interested in the
Yeah,
gear, but it
absolutely.
got you out of a situation where you were burned out, and
Yes.
it gave you an out or a bridge, as we might say.
Yep. It was like a little a nice parachute for a minute. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it gave me that moment to like breathe and kind of take things into consideration of, okay, now what do I want to do? Um, so while I was doing that job, my girlfriend basically said, I found this opportunity. Um, you like being active. It's a career path that it's good benefits, it's good pay, it's hard work, but fun work and you'd be out and about all day long. And I was like, what are you talking about?
What
She's
is
like,
it?
I think you should go test for being a letter carrier. They're looking for letter carriers right now. There was an ad in the newspaper back in the day when we had newspapers.
Right.
We don't even have those anymore, really. And so she convinced me to go take the test. And I just, I was like, I'll just go take the test. And if I pass, I pass. If I don't, then I'll find something different to do. And, working retail and getting older, I gained a lot of weight. And so I kind of looked at it as, if this works and I can get into, a letter carrier route that has walking, then maybe I'll lose the weight. Maybe I'll get back into better shape, And so I got the job. It was, I think, I was what they call a part-time flexible for almost a year before you get a permanent route. You
Right.
basically are just, you're
Taking
at you're at their whim. Like they send you all over the valley to different stations, and basically you're kind of like the cleanup crew of the station. You take people's parts of their routes that they hate, and they're usually horrible and in horrible areas of the town, and lots of mail, and lots of just like having to hustle and figure things out. And because it's not your route and it's a piece of a route, and then you're going from this piece to another piece.
just like starting a new puzzle every day.
Exactly. And so
Okay.
there was a lot of great things about that.
Well, I'm hearing also that there's an inner dissatisfaction. While there were some great things, how long did that job last?
I stayed at the Postal Service for 3 years. um I had early on, while I was a part-time flexible, I got assigned to be the part-time flexible at Mill Creek Post Office. And that post office was called, people in the valley called us the Billy Goats,
Oh,
because we packed a lot of mail, catalogs, just, all kinds of mail, just a large volume of mail. And it was all walking routes, and it was up in the foothills of Salt Lake.
so
And
you are a
so
Billy Goat.
lots of hills and lots of mail, lots of walking. When I finally got a route, which was about a year and a couple of months in, to my time with the Postal Service, I had been asked to be the union steward for the Postal Service letter carriers union, for the Mill Creek Post Office, because they didn't have one and nobody wanted to be one of those people. Like, our office hated the union. They hated the rules that the union had, because they all liked to break the union rules
Mm.
because they benefited from it.
Yep. So,
Lots of overtime.
so here,
And
so here you are now, rising to management again
mhm.
in the union, but I can still tell the negative outweighs the positive.
Oh, absolutely. I wasn't liked by my manager at the post office. I was liked by my coworkers, but if I called out the management on some of the things that they were doing that were against the rules, then that affected how my coworkers were getting paid. They kind of would give me shit, for doing that. And so it was really kind of like a thankless job.
Right. You
They,
can't wait.
yeah, you can't win one or the other. And I finally got assigned a route. So I had my own route. It was a 6-mile walking route, and had a ton of mail on it. And I took a shortcut one day and ended up blowing out my meniscus in my right leg.
I remember that.
And um, during the time before I hurt my knee, there was a lot of things that happened on my route. I had in a 2-day it was like a 3-day span. It was a Friday. I had a resident in my third, so this is my third year in. So I had been on this route a long time, and lots of people knew me on my route. And I came around a corner in my truck, and this was a part of the route where I could actually use the truck to deliver from. And came around a corner, and this gal was running at my truck from her house to the neighbor's house, and I was looking to collect mail from the neighbor's house. And but I knew that they were on vacation, and so I always just check, to make sure, because I checked on my residents.
Yeah.
And so she came running towards the vehicle, and she was hysterical, and she basically said her dad had died, and she was running to the neighbors to try and get help from them. And so I had to make a decision: am I going to go finish my route and just let her be, or am I going to go and help? And I made the decision to go and help. Yeah, he had been dead for many hours. um, and I stayed on. I had called 911 for her, and so I was on with the person, and she was asking me, what do you know first aid? And I was like, yes, I know first aid. I went in. He was very, very much expired, and she wanted me to wait around until the paramedics got there. And so by the time I was able to get back to doing my mail, I was pretty shook up, and I had
Yeah.
called my boss, and I had talked to her and told her what had happened, and said, I'm going to need help to finish my route on time. And that is when the hassle began. Like she was really kind of rude, and was like, well, you'll just have to finish your route. We don't have anybody to help. And
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
well, then I'm not going to be on time. And she's like, no, you need to make up the time. And I was like, no, I'm not going to make up the time. Like I've been basically an hour plus, with this woman. So she finally did send somebody out. I think she thought I was lying. And it was just repeated with her. She always questioned what I was doing.
Well, and then the next day, didn't you have another incident?
Yeah, the next day I had because we wore uniforms, and I had a pen that had exploded on one of my uniforms, and I didn't have any other clean shirts, and so I wore the one that had a ink stain on the back of my shirt. And I was getting my route ready and had my back to the way that it works. You get your route ready in this, what they call a case.
Yeah,
And
like a
I'm throwing
sporting.
all the mail and getting ready, and I feel this poke in my back for the pen, and she basically pokes me in the back and is like, what's this, blood? And I think she was like really like trying to get my goat, from what had happened the day before,
Right.
and just like really trying to get me to explode. And I said, no, it's ink. I turned around, and I said, no, it's ink, and if you'd like me to go home, I'm happy to go home. I didn't want to come in today. If you want me to go home and change my shirt, I'd be happy to. If you want me to just go home, I'd be happy to. And she was like, because I basically put it back at her. She basically was like, well, we don't have anybody to carry your route, so you just do your thing. And she's like, how much time is it going to take? And I say, it's going to take what it takes. I basically just was like, I'm not giving you a time. I'm going to do my route how I want to do my route.
Okay,
And
so
so
tell us what happened the next day.
the next day, so that was on a Saturday. We don't deliver on Sunday. On Monday, it's weird that I even remember what day it was, but it was January or June 23rd. This would have been 2003. My parents' anniversary. That's the reason why I remember the date and the
Right.
day. Um, I'm doing my route, and it gets later into the afternoon, and I hit a portion of my route where we do what we call hopping, where it's not mounted delivery where we're in our car and delivering the mail out to each mailbox, but the houses are far enough apart that we have to drive and jump out, put in park, jump out, go deliver the mail, jump back in. It was snowing and pretty hard. I mean, I would say, it was cold and snowy on June 23rd of all days.
I know we have that
And
once in a
I
while here.
drove only once in a while, right? But it happened. And I was driving on one side of the road, and I go down and U-turn to come back and do the other side of the road. But as I'm passing this one house, I noticed they looked like there was smoke coming out. It looked like maybe it was from their fireplace. I didn't really think anything of it because they're an older couple. And I'm thinking, well, they're not going to turn on their heat because it's June. They probably just started a fire to warm up the house. And so I went down and came back. And by the time I came back and I pulled up in front of their house, because there was trees from the house before them, so you can't, it's obstructed until you get to it. And so I pulled up, put it in park, and I grabbed their stuff and I turned to get out. And literally there was smoke coming from out all the eaves.
So now
And
you knew this or something was up.
yeah, I knew that, like, shit, their house is on fire. So once again, I called 911 and basically, say, my name's Holly Tuckett. I'm a letter carrier. I'm at this particular address. My tenant, my client's house is on fire. And I basically when I went up, I could see this. They have like a big window that's along their carport. And then down, there's a stairway that went down the stairs that you could see. But I also could see kind of down the hallway towards the back of their house on the main level. And so, but I could also see that the smoke literally, like, when they tell you to get down and crawl in a fire, there's a reason they tell you that. Like, there
'Cause the
was
smoke is
literally
yeah.
black smoke all the way down to, like, probably if you were looking down the hallway, you could see somebody's feet and ankles. And so I'm on the phone. As I'm walking back towards, she was like, do you know if they're home? And I said, they're absolutely home. They only have one car. Their car is here. I know they're not on vacation, because I deliver here all the time. They would have put in a vacation hold. And so she said, well, can you see anybody? And I said, I was standing there, and just as I'm walking back up to the house again, I see the husband coming up the stairs with a bucket of water. And he's running back down the hallway. And at that moment, I noticed that somebody had opened their door, but their screen door was shut. And there were dogs there. And at this point, one of the other neighbors had come up. And I noticed too, as I'm looking down the hallway, I could see his wife's feet in slippers, right?
So we know we have two people in the house.
So there's two people in the house. And the woman, so I say to the woman on the phone, I'm like, there's two people in the house. I said, I'm terrified to go in here. Like, literally, it was so smoky. It's like this moment of like, shit, if I go in there and I can't breathe, will I come out? And so she's like, do you can you see, is it close enough that you can get to her to bring her out? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, I want you to cover your face and, stay as low as you can, go in and grab her and bring her back out. So I did that. As I did that, her dogs got out and they ran, and one of the other neighbors kind of rounded them up and put them in her garage. But the woman was kind of disoriented, and the guy that had come over to help me took her and kind of went off and sat down with her. And I said, the husband's still in here somewhere. And at that point, she said, well, if you can see him, get him and bring him out. If you can't, don't go in, because you should be hearing the sirens any minute. And I could hear the sirens finally. And so I saw him, and I actually grabbed him and
Wow.
brought him back outside the door, but he was fighting me.
He
He
wanted to
was
fight the fire, didn't he?
yes, he was like, this is my home. I need to stop the fire. And I was like, but the fire engines are coming, and I don't want you to get hurt. And he literally was like just arguing with me, and then he broke my hands for because I was holding him to like stop him from going back in. And he broke my arms free, and he went back in. And I said to the woman on the phone, I'm like, he just went back inside. What do I do? And she's like, you know what? Just let him go. And the firemen will find him. It's not enough time that he might pass out, but he's going to be fine.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So once again, now like the news stations are showing up, and all that kind of stuff. And so once again, I got to call my boss and be like, hey, there was a fire on my route, and I had to stop and save these people. And the news stations are here, and they want to interview me. And so I'm going to be needing help again. And she literally, at this point though, when she was like, oh, the news stations are going to be there, like, because now it's like, oh, we're going to look good, and I want to be a part of that. And so she literally showed up there, and was like, how can I be helpful to you? Um,
So
and
so how did you leave I mean, this is
how did I leave this toxic environment?
yes,
Uh,
what did you do next? And I think I know
well,
what the
I
next
ended
one.
up getting hurt.
That's right.
I ended up getting hurt. I ended up having to have surgery. Um, I think it was that same summer after I had done that rescue. I ended up having to have surgery
And
and on my knee.
you were thinking about becoming a physical
I was
trainer.
a physical trainer. Yes, I was getting certified as through an organization called the NSCA, the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and I was working to become a strength and conditioning coach and getting certified. And so I was like bummed out, one, because my knee now is blown out, and two, um, I was like, now can I really do that with having a bum knee? And I was just very unsure of where to go next. And because I wasn't set up enough to make that jump, I was working towards it, but I wasn't ready yet.
Right.
And so that was when I came to you. And
Right.
I basically was like, what am I want to move to this next thing, but now with my knee and being unsure about where I'm at, and just wanting to get out, like I wanted out of the postal service so badly, because
So
it was
we
just so toxic.
yeah, so we just made a switch, and you got a great job, bridge. Was not
Yes.
your dream job, but it was a good bridge to go coach at Franklin Covey Coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And it couldn't, I remember you got me, you said, I think this would be a nice gap stop for you. It may not be like what you want to
Uh,
do, but
yeah,
you're already a coach.
yeah,
I was a trainer when I was working in human services. I did a lot of training, and managing, and in the postal service with all of my union stuff, I was a trainer basically. And so, my whole life I've been involved in sports and coaching, and helping problem solve and stuff like that. So you kind of helped me flesh that out, and then basically kind of said to me, would you consider being a coach? And I was like, never thought of it before, but okay, let's see if I can interview and get the job. And I remember when you first called me and said, I got you an interview, and you said, unfortunately, they want somebody to do sales. And I was like, literally, if you could have seen me, Lynn, on the other side of the phone, I literally was like,
Right.
okay, I'll interview for that. But like my face was like, fuck, 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 fuck. Because I was like, there is no way. I am like, I do not like sales. I don't like to be sold to, and I do not like to sell. It's like either you want what I do or you don't. And I'm
Right,
not going to try and convince you otherwise.
right,
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to try because I need to get out of this situation. And so I remember I went, and it was probably not my best interview. And I remember them calling me back and saying, we'd like to offer you the job, but we want to do some training with you, for sales. And but we'd like to give you a shot at it. And I was like, okay, not really what I want to do. I literally said to them, I said, this is not really what I want to do. What I want to do is coach. And so, but if this is what I need to do to get into the company and then maybe be considered later, then great. And luckily, they needed a coach before I ended up having to start
right,
sales. Like,
right.
it was so lucky. And so I ended up being a coach for the Rich Dad program, for Robert Kiyosaki's program.
How long did you do that, Holly?
Let's see. So I left the Postal Service in November of 2003, and I was employed as a Rich Dad coach until 2006, like the summer, early fall of 2006. So almost 3 years.
So what did you do after that? That's where I lost track because you came back in to reconnect, as you
After.
were yeah, after. So what did you
Yeah,
do?
after. So while I was working as a Rich Dad coach, um, it was a great job. It was a great job, and I
You
was
were
a
good.
pretty good coach.
Yeah.
I was a pretty good coach. I had one of the highest success rates, as a coach in our program. And I told it like it was. I mean, there was one of the things that I think kind of, I think I would have maybe stayed, but I just didn't. There was a few salespeople who sold me as being something that I wasn't, and I was very adamant with my boss that I was not going to say that I was some millionaire real estate guru, whatever. I'm a coach, and that's all I wanted to be. And um, there was a couple of salespeople who, just to get sales, would basically lie about what my qualifications were. And um, I remember there was one guy who actually looked me up. He Googled me. This was like the early times of Google, right? And he Googled my name, and when we got on the first call, he said to me, he's like, I Googled you, and I couldn't really find anything about you. I did find a person who has your same name that was a letter carrier who saved people from a fire. And I said, that's me. You're talking to her. And he was like, but you're a real estate investor, and you do this because you already made your millions, and whatever. And I was like, mm, no, I'm a coach. I quit that job, and I'm doing this job, and I want to help you be successful in whatever it is that you want to do. And that's what I do as a coach. And he was like, I said, but if you need me to be a millionaire for that to sit well with you, then maybe we should have you be transferred to another coach. And I'm totally fine with that. Like, I'll get my boss, we'll talk, and we'll figure it out. I said, but I am one of the better coaches here. So, but I leave it totally up to you. You were told by a salesperson that I was this person, but I'm telling you that I'm this person, and that might not sit well with you. And he was like, well, I appreciate your honesty. I'm going to stick with you. And he ended up doing really well. He ended up in, buying some properties and,
Yeah.
fulfilling his dreams, and doing that kind of thing. And that was, many stories like that where, I had clients who did very amazing things, while I was coaching them. And I think there was just a point where I was like helping other people reach what they really wanted to do, but I still hadn't figured out really what it was I wanted to
But
do.
you knew, I mean, I can
I
almost
knew,
you're
I
helping people with their dreams, but you knew you had a dream.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
there was I remember when I left the post office, there was a woman there who was the first letter carrier in the state of Utah that was a female. And her and I kind of forged a friendship because she was part of the union. And I always said, your story would make such a great documentary. And I said, and she's like, well, do you know anybody who does film? And I was like, no, but I would love to tell your story. And at this time, the iMac had just come out and iMovie.
Yeah.
And I had started messing around with that and like doing stuff, family videos and montages, photo montages, just for fun as a release when I was working for the Postal Service. And somebody saw some of those that I had done, and I had done a couple of family history videos or something for somebody. And somebody said to me, have you ever thought about doing film? And I was like, film school, no, like I'm 30 something. I don't want to go back to school. And I remember coming to you and saying, when I was at coaching, I was like, what, how would I go about changing paths? And what do you think about me becoming a filmmaker? And I remember you introduced me to somebody that was actually a filmmaker, and we had a conversation. And I asked her, I said, I'm 30, I think I was 36 at the time. And I said, I'm 36 years old. I really I don't want to go back to school. Like, I don't think I'm cut out for going back to school at this point. I have a hard enough time being managed. Like, I can't imagine having to literally go back to that place of that student teacher relationship, you know? And she was like, you know what? She's like, just get a camera and start shooting stuff, do stuff. And I said, so no film school. She was like, if you didn't know how to network, if you didn't know how to connect with people, then I would say go to school. But she basically was like, you'll just be wasting time,
Right.
you know? So we went on a vacation to Europe in 2005. I had been working at uh, the coaching program long enough that I could literally go to my boss and be like, okay, we're going to take a 2.5 month vacation. Is that cool with you? And, we basically phased out my clients, so that I could take that long of a break. And, while I was on that vacation, I shot tons of video, tons of photos. It was just a time for me to take stock and really figure out, okay, is this what I want to do? And I had invested in some properties at the time. And so I kind of felt like when I came back, I started coaching again. This would have been probably around mid-October of 2005. And so I started coaching again, but my intentions my headspace had totally changed over those 2.5 months of being away. I knew that I had to leave coaching. I knew that I had to at least try to do film.
Yeah,
And
you'd had enough experience that something alive in you was different than where you were at work, and so when you were shooting and filming, you were more alive.
yeah, way more alive, way happier,
Well,
way
how did you
like
make that transition?
so I basically when I came back, I went to a 410s schedule
Right?
in that final probably 6 to 7 months that I was working as a coach.
So you kept your
And
day job going while you started to play with the film.
yep, I started building out my business plan, and um, you know, a lot of what I started out doing was just family history videos and things like that on the weekends. Doing putting together photo montages for like birthdays, anniversaries, that kind of thing, baptisms, all sorts of stuff. So I would do that on my Fridays through Saturday, Sunday, and towards the end, I started um, networking into student film stuff and talking, finding the people that could get me tied into where the film stuff was happening. And so I ended up volunteering a lot on student film sets and basically anywhere where someone would let me on a set. I would go and be like, I don't need to be paid. I just want to learn. And so, I'll clean toilets if that's what it takes, or whatever.
You created
Um,
your own apprenticeship almost.
I did. I did. I mean, I really did. When I finally left in 2006, it going into the fall, um, I basically had enough money kind of put away, and I had the rental properties, and I was like, I'm just going to make a leap and do this. Like, start
So
looking for paid work.
okay, so
And
you were still freelancing somewhat, but you
yep,
could piecemeal yourself out, and so you were looking for that 1099 entrepreneurial. I only need this many gigs to make this much money.
yep, yep, completely.
And how did that unfold? Because today you are a filmmaker. This is
I
what
am
you
a
do.
filmmaker. I am a filmmaker. You know, it I started with like nonprofits offering to do like videos for them. So I wasn't making a ton of money because they're nonprofits, but I knew that they had a need, and it was a way for me to build my what they call reel, which is it's film speak for resume,
Right,
basically.
right.
So in building out my reel, I would try and find companies that would allow me to tell stories the way that I wanted to tell them. It didn't always work out that way, but every now and then, a company would let me kind of play and tell a unique story about their business. And that's because I really like documentary. I've done a lot of narrative film work, but most of that has been either as a producer type person, or unit production manager, and or just a utility person, um, in lots of different positions.
Well,
But
I know I look at your trail and I would see you up to Sundance at the Sundance festivals.
yeah,
See you doing all kinds of odd jobs to get on a film crew.
yep,
Then you would be with your own team. So
hmm,
you basically begged, borrowed, and stole anything you can.
yeah,
Right on the stealing, though.
yeah, yeah.
And
Stealing knowledge, I guess, would be the
yeah, that's what
you
you.
know that's
I'll
kind
clean
of
your
how I look
toilet.
at
Give me some knowledge
it.
here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had one guy who taught me a lot about lighting, and I would volunteer to help him on sets and stuff, especially when he was working on student films where he wasn't getting paid a lot, but he would need hands. He would need help. And once we would set up the lighting setup, then we would have what I like to call the Steve Berlin clinic. And because on a film set, there's tons of downtime, not necessarily for everybody, but certain departments have a lot of downtime, and lighting and grip, or what they call grip and electric, which does all the lighting and all the wiring of lighting and making sure that, the power that goes to the lighting is not going to fail. He would basically, we would sit out by his trailer, and he would teach me about what was in his trailer, what all the different parts and things and stands, and this light does this and this light does this, and
And
we
you
need
were
these for
interested in
this.
all of this, right?
Oh yeah, I was totally interested in it.
Which is a good indication you're into something
Yeah.
and it matches your skill set. So leap forward to today and tell our audience, Holly, what you've accomplished in the last 12 months with your filmmaking.
Oh wow. Well, 5 years ago, we started a documentary called, well, at the time it was called The Kitchen Case. And we began on December 20th of 2013, and we started following the marriage equality case here in Utah. And there was me and three other filmmakers that kind of picked up cameras and got ourselves embedded with the plaintiffs and the lawyers from that case. And so we filmed for 2013 into 2014 as the case was going through the court system, and basically all the way until the Supreme Court basically said, we're not going to hear Utah's case. And so we kind of were like, okay, what's our film? What's the ending? It took us a couple of years to kind of figure that out and to find the right funding in order to finish it. But once we found that, in the last 12 months, we basically edited our film starting February of 2017. And we edited for almost a full year, entered it at Sundance, didn't get in, unfortunately. Dan Reynolds. 2 gay movies from Utah, same time, not going to happen. And he has more money because he's Dan Reynolds and the Imagine Dragons, and he had HBO. So we kind of missed out on Sundance, but we did end up going to the American Documentary Film Festival, where we took the special jury award for our documentary called Church and State. And we ended up also going to the Nice International Film Festival in Nice, France, where we took best documentary. And we also screened, I didn't go, but we screened in Kosovo and in Mexico City. They do like a kind of a, I don't know, it's like an exchange program with the American Documentary Festival, where they send their best films out to them to showcase. So we were chosen to go to Kosovo and chosen to go to Mexico City through the American Documentary Film Festival. And yeah, we had a theatrical release this summer in the end of July, and we are on demand right now in our distribution platform.
Which means that are you on Amazon and Netflix?
Amazon, not Netflix, unfortunately. So we're on Amazon, iTunes. Basically, I've never done this myself, but Xfinity on demand and DirecTV on demand. And then there's a couple of other services. There's a service that is affiliated with the library systems called Hoopla. Yeah. We're streaming on Hoopla, and there's a couple of other ones. I I should send you a link that just it literally is like a catch-all for all of our platforms that we're on, and
Right.
people can just basically pick whatever is their preferred platform, and it will link you directly to our film. If you go to churchandstatedocumentary.com, at the very top of our first page, there's like a link that says watch our movie or something like that. I can't remember what it says. I haven't looked at it in a while. But if you click on that, it takes you to that same page, and you can kind of see where all the platforms are. So basically, it's how distribution works is it goes on demand, and then after our on demand period ends, then we go to streaming platforms. So we approached Netflix. They turned us down, as far as I know, from our distribution channel guy. But we're hoping for Hulu. He's also in talks with Showtime, so we'll see.
That is
Well,
brilliant. So I
yeah,
want to just capsulize. You went from leaving an education, consulting, HR sort of path
yeah,
to retail. So you went from letter carrying to coaching to filmmaking. So, Holly, this is what I would love to do. Your story is so rich and deep with detail. I want to invite you back for another interview where I'm going to ask you, and I'll give you my list of questions. I'm going to ask you some questions and we'll go back because I think this is a two-part series here.
awesome.
One is where we'll talk about where you explored your possible identities, like
Hmm.
when you were out in Mexico filming, and how you executed experiments to see what happened with those identities.
Yep.
How we got some small wins, how you survived the rocky period of not knowing, what was going to happen, connecting with role models, making time to reflect. So there's a whole list of questions I'm going to send you.
Awesome.
Would you be willing to give us the second half and we'll go deeper into some of the mind
Absolutely.
shifts? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Be
This
great.
this has been fantastic. I don't know the audience like well, I'll tell you what we do know. We
Yeah.
know people in their 40s are googling how do I change careers at 40. They do about 760 Google searches a day.
Wow.
And so I know that your story is going to hit home for people.
Yeah.
We'll come back and we'll do a second piece to this.
Perfect.